This meeting is being recorded.
Okay, now we got the recording. Now we can quit playing around and get serious with this. So, all right. So tonight I had somebody ask about a month ago if could talk about mountain thermals and dive into them a little bit more. I know we've kind of touched on them briefly a little bit, but mountain thermals can be your best friend or your worst enemy. And the thing to understand about mountain thermals is they're called diurnal, which means they're two directional. And so if you always think about where cold air falls because it's heavier and hot air rises because it's lighter, you'll be able to understand those diurnal mountain thermals a lot better. So as the air cools, or as the air is cooler, morning and evening time, that air gets heavier and starts coming down the mountain. As the ground temperature heats up from the sun, the air gets lighter and turns around and goes uphill. Depending on your slope, can affect how hard that wind goes down or up, and also how narrow of a draw that you're in. So if you think about tunnels or breezeways, notice how tunnels and breezeways always seem to have more airflow than any place else. It's because it's restricting into a smaller area, and that's why you can feel the flow a lot more. Now, elk always move with the wind in their nose so that they can always smell what's ahead of them. And so that's why in the morning they're usually heading up the mountain with thermals blowing down, and they usually get to their bedding area about the time that the thermals are starting to change, because the whole time heading up they're smelling everything that's in front of them. They get to their bedding area and the thermals change, they're able to smell what's following them. So that's why, I've said several times, you never want to follow an elk up the mountain. You always want to be off to one side or the other. The other reason is and the other thing is where we've always said try to get on the same elevation with them. You're off to the side getting on the same elevation. You don't have to worry about which way those thermals are blowing because you're on the same elevation. They're not going to wind you. But that's why in a 2-on-1 scenario, the caller is always downwind or upwind of the shooter, depending on which way the thermals are blowing, to get that elk to come past the shooter. So that basically the thermals are going from the bull to the shooter or the elk to the shooter. So that's why sometimes when you're back calling, you have to move. Okay. We've all heard wind swirls, right? Why do winds swirl? If you notice, a lot of times when wind swirls, those are on benches and flats because you don't have that defined hillside for the wind to really go up or down. And also, a lot of times on those benches, you have darker timber a lot of times. And so you have wind coming up on an open face, and then it gets into that cooler, darker, flat area, and the wind just sits there and swirls because you don't have that rise or fall capability because it just hits that bench and it just sits there and swirls around a little bit. That's why benches can be really, really tough to hunt sometimes because of wind swirling. What we normally do is we'll puff check the wind 10 times and we'll play the law of averages. It's like, okay, 4 out of 10 times is going this direction. That's just what we've got to go. You will find a little bit of a consistent, but it's still kind of a crapshoot. The other way that wind can be our worst enemy is, I don't know if this has happened to you guys before, but it's happened to me several times. You have a good consistent wind, sun's up, temperature's going, thermals are going uphill, you're set up, you're working, and all of a sudden a cloud cover comes in. And then all of a sudden that wind that was going up is now all of a sudden doing a 180 and going down. So you reposition. And then all of a sudden that cloud passes and the wind goes back to going up and you got to reposition again. So Sandy, you smiled. Happened before?
Oh yeah. It's the way I get my best exercise.
Running back and forth.
Yep.
Have been there,
Now, you
Jim.
know you're in trouble when the wind hits you in the back of the neck.
Oh, especially when that bull's out in front of you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it's happened numerous, and you know, and you feel it on the back of your neck even before he smells you, but you immediately know it's done.
Yeah, you go.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I don't go. There's other things I say that I can't say right now because there's
Yeah,
children.
right.
Yeah. Yeah. We've got children tuned in tonight, so I got to mind my P's and Q's and what I say.
Yeah, that's why I went.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it usually starts with O and ends in it. So, yeah.
Yeah,
Um, mhm. So, no, thermals are one of the things that I get one of the things I get asked a lot is how do I feel about cover scents and scent elimination products and this and that. They can certainly help, but far too many people rely on them. And really, if you hunt the wind and use the wind in your favor, it doesn't matter. And even with all those scent elimination products, you will never, ever, ever be 100% scent free. So,
Only if you stop breathing can you.
yes. Oh, stop breathing. Well, actually, stop everything because actually, when you're out there, we constantly have dead skin cells that are falling off of us.
Mhm.
And those are just floating in the air. So yeah, there's so many things. And honestly, I don't know how many bulls that I have harvested to where I used Old Spice deodorant that morning. So it had been hunts where just getting kicked in the teeth and I mean doing everything right, taking the camouflage off at night and hanging it on the clothesline out in the trees so it doesn't go in the trailer or in the tent or all of that non-scent, scent-free deodorant, powder in the boots. I mean just everything and getting kicked in the teeth and it was like, you know what, screw this. And I just grabbed my Old Spice deodorant and I smelled purty when when I left camp. So um and just got the wind right and killed a bull.
It was that allspice. He had to check that out.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. He wanted the lavender swagger or whatever they say on the commercial or whatever. But no, it's and one of the things that I constantly do too is I really try a lot when I'm moving into my hunting area to have that wind in my nose. So, because one, it gives me an indication if there's elk up ahead of me because I can smell them. Then I know to adjust what I'm doing because usually if I can smell them up ahead of me, I have a good idea of where they're at. And I immediately know I don't want to continue my same path because I'm going to end up, they're going to end up seeing me a lot sooner than I'm going to see them or getting, because usually they're up a little bit that they can see downhill a heck of a lot better. And so I'll adjust my course. I'll move to the side and go up another finger ridge, to try to catch up with them or get on that same level. As far as wind checkers, I probably go through 2 or 3 bottles of wind checker a season, just constantly checking the wind. Plus, sometimes they're kind of fun to really put a good load up in and shake them hard. And you already know which way the wind's blowing, but your buddy's walking up this way and then just puff that thing and so.
That's
Do
funny.
you always use a scentless wind checker or do you get any of the estrus scent wind checkers, that kind of stuff?
I use dead downwind. the orange dead downwind wind checker. It just, I don't know. The bottle fits well in my pocket. It's easy to grab. It doesn't clump. It just, I don't know. It works well. I've even had bottles stay in my pocket in my pants and go through the washer and dryer and still work just fine. So I don't end up with biscuits when I'm pulling it out of my pocket from, coming out of the dryer. So um, it's just a brand, but no, I mean the scented. I mean, there was one year that God, this guy sent me this wind checker to try. It had a UV light in the bottle, and it actually made the powder glow. So if you were in low light situations, you could actually see. It didn't work for squat, Jim. I saw your look like, oh, interesting. And I was the same way. I was like, oh, interesting. And then I tried using it, and it was garbage. So
You know what I use? I get
what?
the wood ash out of my wood burning stove and put it and refill my bottles up
Yeah. Well,
because they're used to smelling fires all the time and how much you put in the air, really.
oh yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
I was hearing something. I was trying to figure out what it was, and Knox is in his room next door practicing his cow calls. So, yeah, I mean that's very, very true with the fire because that's a question I get asked a lot about having campfires at camp, and it's like they're used to smelling smoke, and actually the smell of smoke covers your human scent a little bit.
Hey, I have a friend of mine that puts his clothes in front of the fire in the smoke.
Yeah, well, to each their own. I mean, it's it, basically bottom line is play the wind. That wind's going to be your best friend. So, and a lot of times when I'm planning loops, it's kind of like when we did the last e-scouting and I was talking about some of those loops. I was planning those loops based on those morning thermals, where I'd be at in the morning, how high up on the mountain I'd be when things started rising, and where I would be when thermals were definitely going up, and then where I would be ending up in the evening when thermals, were kind of coming down. So, but that's kind of an important play when you're planning your loops and your hunts. Definitely factor in those thermals. And you can also get a good gauge for your area about what time of day that ground's going to heat up and thermals are going to start changing. You'll get a good idea early in the season for us. I mean, it's 8:30, 9 o'clock in the morning. It's pretty early. So later on the season, it might be 10, 10:30, 11 before it really gets heated up and starts going. And in fact, some areas that we hunt, especially later in the season, that wind never really starts going up just because it stays so cool in that area. And especially later in the season with lower temps anyways, they're automatically coming down. So that's really it on thermals. There's not a whole lot to it. I know a lot of the apps now are starting to put wind direction as layers you can put on. I don't know how accurate they are. I rely on the wind checker. I mean that wind checker and constantly, and it's crazy too because we've sat there and checked the wind, it's perfect, and we've gone 10, 15 yards, checked it again, and it's completely different. And then you panic and you really start thinking about what you're gonna do. And sometimes we're like, screw it, let's just go. Beeline and continually checking. And as we get closer, then it's okay. Now we really need to, pay attention because yeah, we may have walked that 15 yards and we feel the wind on the back of the neck and thinking crap, but then 15 yards up, it's going a different direction. And that's that shade, sunshine, shade, sunshine, shade. So, all right. Any questions on thermals?
I
Nope.
had
No.
that, I had that experience on a bench. I climbed a really, really steep cliff got to the top and there was a nice plateau there. And above me was a bench. So I sat up and started calling. And about my third call, I felt the wind hit me in the back of the neck. And just as it did, a big 6x6 came up on the top of the ridge, took one whiff and took out.
Usually the best thing for hunting benches and flats like that is hunt the edges. You'll typically find a lot more consistent wind on the edges than you will in the centers.
Makes sense.
Mhm.
Okay. Well, Mr. Larry has decided that he wants to perform for us tonight and that he has been practicing on this routine and he would like to share what he's been working on.
Jim and Sandy did this really well, and I think I'm about to get it, but I want coaching here.
Okay.
So here we go.
Uh,
Okay.
Draw your note out. Your middle part and your second and third portions of it are getting better. You're just choppy on the note. Ooh. 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 Don't cut that note off so sharp. There you go. There. Yeah. So
And then speed it up. You do one. I want to hear yours. I'm not even close.
I've been doing it just
Yeah, but you're getting better, Larry.
I'm coming from a really low place, though, Jim.
No, actually,
You're better than
yeah,
you were.
yeah, you made good progress. Just remember on that note, just in your mind, do that note in slow motion, almost like you're really exaggerating, dragging it out. There you go. Who says an old
Yeah,
dog can't learn new tricks?
that's right.
Yeah, that was it right there.
Okay,
So,
It was pretty good.
I'll work on that.
yeah.
I have a request from you. I want to hear Roundup speaking.
Oh, a
Roundup
roundup
call.
bugle?
Yeah. Okay.
So it's a soft bark, just a little whine, and then only 2 or 3 chuckles.
Okay.
So
Okay.
and so that's kind of when they start. And if that cow doesn't come after he's done the roundup bugle a couple of times, then he'll get more aggressive with it. So still saying the same thing. We're just adding a little bit more attitude and persistence into it.
Will the cows do Roundup calls?
So the cows have basically 2 different cow sounds that they're kind of roundup. So you have an assembly mew, which an assembly mew is asking a single elk come to me. So a lot of times you'll hear that assembly mew in a cow calf communication scenario, or a cow sometimes will do that to a bull. And then the other thing that they have is so that's the assembly mew, and then there's the regathering mew. And the regathering mew is telling all elk within ear distance, come to me, gather on me. And that's a sound that a lot of times the lead cow will do to gather everybody together before they head to the feeding area or before they head to the bed. It's just everybody come here. But you'll also hear that too, like if you scattered a herd, like you were moving through and you bumped into a herd and they scattered, man, that's a great thing to do, to sit there and just wait for a second and then start following part of the group with that lost excited mew. And then you can start throwing, you can ramp it up with that lost excited, throw in those assembly mews, throw in those regathering mews. If nobody's answering back or coming to you, then I start adding the buzz mews in. You're ramping up that intensity on it, and you're ramping up the urgency of what you're saying there, basically.
Okay, good.
Man, you only asked about Roundup Bugle, and here we went down another rabbit hole.
It's important. That's important.
So let's do this. So next session in 2 weeks, we'll loop back to the elk calling techniques, the group techniques. So do you guys want to, since Larry asked about the Roundup Bugle, do you guys want to work on that to the next 2 weeks, and then we'll come back and the Roundup Bugle will be the sound of choice in 2 weeks?
Sounds
Okay.
good to me.
Because you basically have 3 parts to it. Okay. You have the bark, which the bark is basically, if you think about the chuckle, right? The note. Oh. So, but if you add those first 2, ooh, ooh, learning how to chuckle will actually teach you how to nervous bark. Because the nervous bark is basically just the first 2 components of the chuckle. So when you're really doing a nervous bark, you really throw, long-haired wonders coming in right here at the end.
Gregory, welcome.
Hey, howdy.
Way to make the grand appearance. We were just getting ready to sign off, and now that you're here, we just got to start all over again.
Yeah, go ahead and start. I
Okay.
thought it started at 7:30.
No, I'm mixing it up to try to do it earlier at 7 o'clock, because I've had some Eastern people that had wrote in and said 7:30 was too late, so I moved it to 7. And since I've done that, not a single one of them have tuned in. So, okay.
I'm from Pennsylvania.
Yeah. Maybe Pennsylvania,
Oh,
after
here.
Boise. So, no, but Greg, what we talked about tonight was kind of thermals. What they are, how they do, how to use those to your advantage. And then what we're doing now is, so the next one in 2 weeks, it is going to be another elk calling techniques session with the group. And so the call of choice is going to be the Roundup Bugle. And so I'm just starting to break down the Roundup Bugle and talk about the components. And then you guys will have the next 2 weeks to practice that. And then we'll all come back together and do a group calling lesson on that. So, okay. So the first part of that Roundup Bugle is that nervous bark. Now, remember, like I said, when learning to chuckle, so those first 2 parts, ooh, ooh. But when you do the nervous bark, you really, on your diaphragm, force a lot of air. Pretty crafty there, Larry, to mute your microphone before you're trying to practice those nervous barks there so nobody could hear you. Uh-huh. I see how you operate. So
I didn't want to disturb the group.
this group's already disturbed. I don't think you can add to that. So, okay. So when you actually want to bark, it's a real force of air, really hard. On the roundup bugle, you're scaling that airflow back. See, notice it's not as sharp, it's not as crisp. So this is where using your diaphragm to really control that air and tune that knob back so it's not so forceful. Yep. And remember, you're not sucking in on this one. I know we're just getting you going on chuckling, and now we're going to screw you all up with this.
Change up.
Yep. Change up. Yeah. We are all of a sudden jumping over into the left lane with no turn signal, and we don't care if we're merging into traffic. We're just going to screw shit up right here. So
We're driving in England.
yes. Wrong side of the road. So, okay. So part 2, the middle part, it's just a whine. So you're going to put about medium pressure with your tongue and use your airflow. You're not running up the scale. You're just kind of staying on that medium tension for the whine. And then the last part of it is just 2 or 3 chuckles. And they're not real loud, they're not real sharp. So when you put that whole thing together, and that's the roundup bugle. So, and the roundup bugle is basically just telling. It's usually a lot of times bulls will use it early in the season when they're in that cow gathering mode, and they're basically telling the cows, come to me. They're, I'm over here, come over here. I'm lazy. I don't want to go to you. You come to me. And they'll sit there and do that. And kind of where I showed they're doing that a few times and that cow's not responding. And he's going to get more demanding at it. And the way you do that, you're doing the exact same things. You're just using your diaphragm to force more air as kind of a volume control on it. But the technique is exactly the same on the bark, the whine, and the 2 or 3 chuckles.
Good.
Okay.
Good stuff.
What other questions? What do we got?
Oh, I got one. Who am I throwing in to go elk hunting with this year? It was a swing and a miss in Arizona.
Oh, no kidding.
No kidding. Swing and a miss.
Even on the cow tags?
A swing and a miss.
Wow.
They haven't put up the leftover tags yet. I'll see. I did that last year on that one, but there was only like 2 of them.
Draws are the greatest thing, and then they're most fair, and everybody just needs to switch to a
Yeah,
draw.
that's the way it goes.
But Greg and I get a hunt every single year because we just walk in and buy a tag over the counter.
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
I know.
Yeah.
But Idaho needs to go to a draw, so that's what every non-resident tells us.
Oh, I would never say that. I never said that.
Oh no, there's a lot, and in fact, there's one member that is in the elk calling academy here. He lights my phone up every year as soon as non-resident tags go on sale because he doesn't get his coveted text creek because it sells out in 5 minutes. And he's like, "That your state is so screwed up." And I'm like, "There's still tags available." Yeah, in units I don't know, and I have to drive another 40 minutes. You're still hunting elk every year, jackwagon.
Yeah. John, put in a draw here. There you go.
No,
I like Washington's over the state because it's east or west, so I can take any unit I want in one side of the state. I just have to abide by whatever the elk is available in that unit.
Yeah. No, Jim, that guy is from Arizona.
Oh, wow.
And in fact, every time he starts blowing up my phone, I tell him, "Then stay home and hunt your own state." I can't draw a tag in my state.
Yeah, you know why? Because he puts in for probably 1 or 2 areas with just bull tags instead of you have 5 choices. I always go bull cow, and leave and my bull in the last one. And I get a tag probably every 3 years, except
Yeah.
I did get 3 years in a row. So there you go.
Yeah.
With
Well,
the leftover last year.
and he's probably putting in for the coveted units that have like a 2% draw chance.
Oh yeah, probably unit 10 and 8
Yeah.
or unit 1.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we have draw tags here in Idaho that there are a couple that, they are a 3% draw. And there are people that get pissed off because they never get drawn for that. And of course they bitch and moan and don't think it's fair and need everything to go to a full-on draw system. And I'm like, you idiot, you didn't draw for that, but you can still pull an over-the-counter tag for who knows how many other zones and areas, but I don't know.
The New Mexico draw deadline is March the 22nd.
Yeah, it's coming up too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's all right. I won't be putting in for that one either. So I don't hunt out of state anymore.
Not when you can just go get a tag over the counter. I mean,
well, and that's the thing. I mean, I hunted Montana, I hunted Wyoming, I hunted other states, and it was crazy because before Idaho got really, really popular and non-resident tags sold out, us as residents could walk into the fishing game on August 1st and buy a second tag for $249. I mean, it was half the amount that the non-resident tag was. But then you're walking out and you've got 2 elk tags in your pocket. And I mean, I can't go out of state for $249, but now Idaho's become so popular that there is no non-resident tags left over anymore. We can't do that.
yeah.
Yeah, one of my coworkers, her husband drove over to Idaho. It's the night that non-resident tags opened, and they camped over there somewhere to go get a tag.
Uh-huh.
Wow.
A lot of people will. It's just like we've got a couple zones here that are capped, and same thing. People will start camping out 2 days before. And
can you buy them online, or is it only
so what they did with the cap zones is they split them in half. So half of them can only be sold in the vendors, and the other half can only be sold online. And that's the thing that that's what happened this last December, because you would have people logging into the Fish and Game site 3, 4, 5 hours before the tags went on sale, thinking, oh, I'm first in line. So what Idaho did this year, right before the tags went on sale, they took everybody that was online and reshuffled them. And you got a random number. And so there was people like, this was bull crap. When I logged on, I was 186 and they reshuffled and I was 8,640. It's like, hey, that sounds like a draw.
Mm-hmm.
But they didn't see it that way.
Mm-hmm.
They said the state of Idaho cheated them out of a tag because they logged on 6 hours early to get themselves a place in line.
Yeah, that won't crash a website at all.
Oh, it's crashed.
Oh no. That's what they do here too. They wait till the last possible day or weekend to put in and crash the website, thinking that I put in last, they're going to find me first. No, I was put in like at least a week or more early, because I know that you're going to be all pissed off trying to get on that website, trying to get in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and see, we used to hunt that cap zone, and it just got so hard. I mean, there was years that tag would sell out in 5 minutes or less, and it was just always a gamble when you got 4 people in camp, and heck, 2 of you get the tag and 2 of you don't. And now all of a sudden, what do you do? And so that's why. And I also know the tricky thing with this place too, because it's capped, people think it's a coveted tag. It's a very, very hard unit to hunt. I know people that have got the tag and spent 10, 14 days in there and never even saw an elk. Your average bull in there is probably 270. So but because it's capped, the other thing is you have people that will get that tag and then they're sitting in the bar talking to their buddies and they're like, yeah, I hunted for 10 days and I didn't see a single person. And meanwhile, you have people that are hunting over the counter non-capped areas and they're seeing people behind every tree. And that's why this unit became so popular, was because everybody was like, "Oh, man, I can get a tag, I can go hunt and I can not see another person for 2 weeks and oh, this is going to be great." But it is a tough unit to hunt. Very tough.
It's like the sawtooth or something.
It is the Sawtooth Zone.
Yeah, I've seen that in shows, boy.
Yeah. So and
Oh,
and
that's a
and
good
the thing
stuff.
is too is Sawtooth Zone is only 3 bulls away from meeting objective. So, and as soon as they meet objective, they pull that cap, you're going to have so many people flooding into that. And that's another reason why we got out of there and started hunting other areas. And Bryce was like, "Yeah, but we know the area." And I said, "Okay, you're right, we do. But now we're going to have to start fighting with all these people for our camping spot for hunting camp." I said, "And then there's going to be people camping next to us. They don't know how to hunt this area. They're not going to see elk. And then all of a sudden they're going to see us bringing elk back to camp. And how long do you think that's going to be before they start following us into these little pockets that we've spent years learning and all this stuff?" So I said, it took a lot of persuading to get Bryce to leave that place just because we knew it so well and was so successful in it. But I just,
You're learning a new area, so
yeah.
take time.
Well, and I mean the area we're at now, I mean we're coming on year 5, 6. So I mean we've got it dialed in now. So
Yeah.
but we're gonna go camp this year and learn a couple of new areas as backups, because last year we got inundated with people. I think fire had something to do with it, that big fire to the south of us that pushed a lot of people in. So we're just always looking for backup plans. Plus, it's kind of cool just to explore some new country.
Well, let me know when we're going.
Okay.
We'll all be there.
Yeah. Yeah. It'll be a large camp in a hurry. That is why I do not put anything on my truck anymore. When I first started Elk Calling Academy, I had Elk Calling Academy vinyl logos made for the side of the truck and the tailgate, and I thought it was great. Not a smart move to do. We had to leave that thing sitting in camp and take decoy trucks to go out and hunt and park, or we'd park that someplace that we knew was just horrible and shitty and just nothing, and park the truck there and jump in another rig and go hunt
Yeah,
someplace else.
I'll bet.
Yeah.
Everybody else, this guy.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh yeah. There's a few times that I'd go to pick up my truck and there would be 2 or 3 other trucks parked there, and we'd just be laughing when we got back to camp. It's like, oh, I'm sure they had fun with that 9.5 foot tall buckbrush. It's so thick you got to crawl for 1.5 miles to actually get through it. And then when you get through it, it's actually just brown grass. There's not a tree one to find. So
That's
it's
right.
oh, it's
Wow.
it's more mule deer and mountain lion country than it is elk country, but that's all right. Power of
That's
persuasion.
right.
Mm-hmm. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Remind me never to take a suggestion on where to hunt from you.
Just go the other way.
Funny thing is, if you were to come to Idaho and hunt, I would give you suggestions, and everybody that I'm friends with that I've given suggestions to, they have gotten into elk. So friends, I will send to legitimate places. Now, there is a catch, because usually the place I send you is a place that I have not hunted before, but I want to, and I send you in there to basically scout it for me. So there is a method to my madness.
Andy wants it back.
So tall tales of a 350 bull that I missed, but he's still in there, is on its way.
Uh-huh. Now remember too, I take some of that information with a grain of salt, and I can tell. So because a lot of these areas I'm looking at, I'm looking at harvest statistics. So, and I generally know what's coming out of those areas. And I can guarantee that if there's a 350 bull in that area, there are a pile of locals that know that there is a 350 in that area, and you will have a lot of competition. So, and usually we'll hear, because stuff like that people like to brag about.
Mhm.
All right, guys, what else? Any other questions?
Oh, you were going to make a video of us of series of elk calls. That's still on your list?
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Well, let's get it done.
You have no idea. So, well, yeah, and I also told you there is a whole series of videos already on the.
Yeah, if you dig them out,
Uh,
if you dig them out.
oh, I see how it is. So you don't want to go on the computer and scroll all the way to the bottom. You just want me to do a new one so it's fresh up top there.
With
So,
series, yeah.
but
It's
actually,
a lot of work scrolling.
what's that, Jim? But Larry,
It's a lot of work scrolling, you know.
I know. Sitting there doing that gets tiring after a while.
We want a table of contents.
Yeah. Divide it in chapters. So actually the new e-course will have that. And Larry, one thing that I added into the e-course that I wrote down that I will be recording the videos for, at the end of every sound is going to be a training video that basically I do the sound and then pause and then I do the sound again, and it's going to be about a 3-minute long video of me just doing that sound, so you can sit there and do it back and forth and back and forth and back and forth to help tune your ear and practice. So
Good.
so I did throw that into the new e-course.
Right.
So
Is the e-course live yet?
No. I still have a list of videos I need to get done. I'm waiting for this dang snow to get off the mountain, but Mother Nature not ready to loosen that grip. So, I mean, we're a month away from spring bear and spring turkey, and I mean, we still have feet and feet. Well, there's a winter storm advisory in effect until 5 o'clock tonight up in the mountains.
Wow.
Well, I guess it's past now, but and they weren't talking about inches at higher elevations. They were talking about feet.
And we need to be practicing. I need to be practicing now, soon. As you could tell,
Always be practicing. Always. See, that's why I like getting some of these new toys. Is just it forces me to keep practicing and keep playing.
And Michael, I had a quick question.
Uh-huh.
Looking at probably buying a new set of arrows for my compound.
Okay.
And I wanted to maybe try and tune with my current ones and see if I need to do any adjustments, being I'm buying new arrows anyhow.
Sure.
And I've tried videoing the flight path, but the arrows are just moving too fast for what my phone will do.
Right.
Any suggestions on how to self-tune with those?
I mean, really, the only way you can self-tune is do knock tuning to see where your impact is and playing with the knock. That's one of the things that's hard with today's bows, where they're getting faster and faster, being able to, track the flight, see what that knock's doing, are you getting a knock kick? But usually impact, up close, so you can. So two things: bare shaft tune and knock tune are the two best things you can do.
And what range should I be shooting those at for that?
So bare shaft tune, you're going to start at 5 yards. You're going to go 5, 10, 15, 20. I mean, and as long as your bow is tuned correctly, I mean, you could pump that out to 40, 50 yards.
Okay.
So, but I prefer bare shaft tuning over paper tuning, because paper tuning is all right, but bare shaft tuning will really give you a good indication of how your arrow is leaving the bow. And the thing that I noticed is if you bare shaft tune, you can go from field points to broadheads and back, and you will get the same exact arrow flight. You won't have to change anything. And that's one of the things too, is when you're grouping arrows. So let's say you're doing a 4-shot group. You ever have that where you have the 3 here and then you have that one up here?
Yep.
You have that flyer. That flyer you need to knock tune, because you're not knock optimized on that. And all you do is just do it. So if you shoot a 3 fletch, you just turn it so the next vein is up. So, you'll have to mark them 1, 2, 3 or whatever. And then and what happens is you'll have this, and all of a sudden that one, once it's knock tuned, will come right in with the rest of the group.
Okay. Appreciate it.
Yep. So, all right, guys, we're going to call it. Appreciate you guys tuning in. So 2 weeks,
Yeah.
round up bugle, get to practicing and have fun with it.
7 o'clock.
7 o'clock. Yes.
7 o'clock.
Yeah. We'll see if those Eastern crybabies actually tune in now that I changed the time to accommodate them.
Yeah.
Now they're going to watch this replay and they're going to go, oh, we're tuning in all right. So,
Oh, yeah.
all right, guys, have a great
care.
night. We'll see you in 2 weeks.